We're very excited to talk about Microsoft Copilot today, being joined by Josh King and Chris Scuteri. Josh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Again, to echo Zach, I'm excited to get on here today and talk about Microsoft Copilot and what it can do from an organizational perspective for you. And I'll pass it along to Chris.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our show. Happy to be here today. Happy to be talking about Copilot and yet another way that Microsoft can help you ease through your workday.
Fantastic. Thank you both. So we're going to start off just setting some context, talking about what is Copilot. And Copilot, or we're going to talk about multiple Copilots, are a suite of purpose-built Microsoft AI solutions that extend OpenAI's GPT-4 model that most of us are familiar with through the use of Chat GPT to increase our organization's users' productivity, unleash their creativity, and also to build their skills across anything from working in Office documents and creating Office documents to building automated and digitized business processes to analyzing security signals and deploying configuration and compliance policies, and many, many more things. And two of the most well-known copilots that Microsoft has released are simply Microsoft Copilot, which was also formerly known as Bing Chat Enterprise. And Microsoft Copilot is analogous to Chat GPT. It's a web-based generative AI tool. But the difference between Microsoft Copilot and ChatGPT is that Microsoft Copilot, along with the rest of their Copilot solutions, are built with commercial protections and controls embedded within the product. And further, Microsoft 365 Copilot integrates directly into your Microsoft 365 apps like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Teams to help you analyze your documents, emails, chats, and to generate meaningful content on demand. So again, Microsoft has made a big investment in OpenAI, and that is really what is driving the Microsoft Copilot solutions. But we're going to talk some more about kind of those key differences, particularly around protections, security, and controls that Microsoft has extended and embedded into their Copilot solutions. And Microsoft Copilot solutions are for everybody in your organization and across all of your teams, whether it's finance teams, IT, HR, sales, marketing, supply chain operations, everyone really. Microsoft Copilot, Microsoft 365 Copilot, they're going to help you do more of what you're already doing, but help you do that faster and help you do that better. There's been a lot of studies that have been run for productivity, AI, the impact of AI, and Microsoft ran one and identified that, of course, many people are excited about using AI. They found some numbers in terms of 64% of employees say they don't have enough time or energy to do their job. And almost half of all employees surveyed said that they spend too much time kind of creating first drafts of documents. And these are things that AI are really going to help expedite, not only to save time, but again, also to increase creativity at the same time.
I think it's an important point here that you mentioned is that this is already integrated in the apps that they're already using. So there's no copying and pasting from one place to another. It's already existing in the content that they were already creating in the apps themselves. Very helpful and efficient.
Yeah,
That's
and
a
the
great
ability.
point.
Oh, sorry there. And the ability to pull, like Chris said, across applications and data sources within your M365 suite really lends to that efficiency of the users not having to go and search for data and using Copilot to search for that data and source it up to their document or their Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, those are great points. And in the recent Microsoft Work Trend Index, they did poll people, and nearly 2 in 3 people said that they don't have enough time to complete all of their job tasks. And those same employees also are 3.5 times more likely to struggle with innovation and strategic thinking, probably because they don't have enough time to even get their daily tasks done, let alone try to innovate and create things that are better, bigger, more creative. And AI is going to help us do all of that through the use of the Microsoft Copilots. We thought it'd be a good idea also to clear up some common misconceptions about AI in general and the Microsoft implementation of AI. And one of those is just kind of what's in it for me, or I don't think our organization needs it, or my team doesn't need AI. And so I'll kind of kick off, the response to that, and then hand it over to Josh and Chris. But one thing that organizations may not realize, although most of the organizations we've talked to are cognizant of this, is there's a good chance your employees are already using AI, and you yourself, may already be using AI, probably through Chat GPT, just because we all know that was the fastest growing technology ever. It reached 100 million users in the span of 3 months, which is incredible and really opened up the use of AI and introduced AI broadly to consumers and throughout the commercial industry very, very quickly. And so people are leveraging it because it's obviously a very powerful tool. But like we've already touched on, ChatGPT, is kind of a quote unquote unofficial maybe usage of AI within an organization or within a business. So Chris, I'm interested kind of to hear from you some of the other responses, that we would give organizations or folks when they don't understand how AI may apply to them.
Yeah, many topics come to mind here. Like you were referencing, there is a potential that employees are using this already, right? And they're just trying to get their jobs done. As we saw with the statistics, right? They're trying to find methods that make it so that they can get through their days easier, faster, get rid of writer's block, et cetera, right? But they are not necessarily aware that they may be inadvertently giving out company information through Chat GPT, right? And so companies don't have the right kind of policies and procedures in place necessarily to govern some of this. And so bringing this back in-house inside of Microsoft's native tools is just one of the ways we would recommend, certainly making sure that data is safe and secure from that aspect, while also giving users and employees the flexibility to get what they need done in a safe and sufficient and efficient manner.
Yeah. Definitely. Thank you. And we'll get into use cases as well, but when we're able to explain what's possible with Copilot and especially Microsoft 365 Copilot, it really does apply broadly. If you are using M365 apps like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Teams, you can use AI today, right now, this very minute, and so can all of your users. And a quick example of that is when you come back to your inbox, you can ask Copilot to summarize emails that you missed while you were out and flag important items, or ask Copilot to surface all emails from your boss or from an important collaborator or colleague that you are working with on your team or within your organization, and quickly find the meaningful information in the noise of your inbox. Josh, do you have any other thoughts on why people might need AI that they don't realize?
Yeah, most certainly, and I think it really highlights some of the gap in the technology awareness within organizations, from these superpower users on down to people that aren't supremely comfortable with using technology. The Copilot suite is really that gateway into AI, and leveraging those things within Word, PowerPoint, Excel to help them do their jobs easier and more efficiently. Being able to create a PowerPoint presentation by asking Copilot for certain things, and then it bringing back information to create that PowerPoint presentation. Another example is within Excel, and being able to summarize data very quickly without having to actually physically create the chart or the data slice that you're looking for, really puts the power in the user's hands to be able to use the tool and really come out back with the data that they're looking for more efficiently and more effectively than they would trying to stumble through which parameters I need to put in and add to a chart to have that data come back. To me, using Copilot within the apps is really going to make people's lives easier, and make them enjoy using the tools that much more prevalent.
So
Yeah, I love.
when someone says my team doesn't need AI, show me somebody that doesn't need help getting through
Yep.
their day, right? You can't find someone. So
Yeah, I love that, and um, it's going to be so broadly impactful, right? Because we all use the Microsoft Office applications and the M365 apps. And there's also confusion around how is Copilot different than ChatGPT, and how is M365 Copilot different than just Microsoft Copilot. And Copilot is built on the same models as ChatGPT. We talked about Microsoft's huge investment into OpenAI, which is the industry-leading large language model and generative AI solution. But what Microsoft again is doing is they're bringing control for your organization and security, as well as the easier integration into your daily workflows within the apps, like we've talked about. So Microsoft Copilot, right, the web-based generative AI solution, it has commercial controls built into it. And what that means is if you have users in the organization that are using ChatGPT, any information that they feed into ChatGPT is consumed by the large language model to further train it, and potentially will be provided back to somebody else when they ask ChatGPT to do something. And hopefully, the alarm bells are already going off in your head, because if the information that your users are feeding in is organizational information, proprietary or confidential information, you have a significant security and compliance risk on your hands using ChatGPT. Using Microsoft Copilot, as long as the users are logged in with their work accounts, you have enterprise controls and protections. Nothing that you feed in to Microsoft Copilot is going to be used to retrain the model. It's not going to be consumed. It's not going to be stored. There's no concerns about that leaking outside of the organization. And then furthermore, the Microsoft 365 Copilot implementation is going to inherit any security policies, permissions, compliance controls, or other policies that you have already configured within your own Microsoft 365 tenant. And this is huge. This is the first question we get from people, or maybe like the second question after they want to know what it's going to do for them is, well, can't someone just use Copilot to look up everyone's salary information or HR information, or confidential financial or sales numbers? Well, no, they can't. They can only get to what they are already able to get to today. And certainly the tool will make it easier for them to access that information, but it's all security trimmed, and it's inheriting all of those controls that you've already done so much work on implementing within your own tenant in the cloud. And hopefully you have an understanding as well about the difference between Copilot and Copilot for Microsoft 365. So again, Microsoft Copilot is the web-based generative AI solution, very much like ChatGPT, formerly known as Bing Chat Enterprise, and Copilot for Microsoft 365, or sometimes we reference it as Microsoft 365 Copilot, is really going to be a similar solution, but it's going to be built in and accessed from within your Microsoft 365 apps like Word, Excel, Outlook, PowerPoint, Teams. And it's going to be able to actually act upon and use your data, your files, as well as the Microsoft Graph, which gives you all sorts of data and relational points between who you collaborate with, who you meet with, what kind of documents you work on, the types of projects that you're working on within your organization, and feed all of that back into the content that Copilot for 365 generates for you, or answers the questions that you ask of it. So we like to talk a little bit about requirements to get ready for and to actually leverage Microsoft Copilot and Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365. And there's a couple of key areas. One kind of just around system requirements and licensing requirements. So Microsoft Copilot is more broadly accessible. And what we tell most organizations is you probably already have the licensing to be able to leverage Microsoft Copilot. It's going to be included with most, if not all, of the common licensing bundles within the Microsoft 365 stack. And this is going to include everything from Microsoft 365 Business Premium, all the way up through Office 365 E3 and E5, and certainly Microsoft 365 E3 and E5, which are sort of at the top of the licensing stack in terms of bundles. So chances are your organization already has Microsoft Copilot available. It just needs to be turned on, and you need to follow some of the other best practices that we're going to talk about in just a moment. So in terms of Microsoft 365 Copilot, the licensing requirements are similar, but you do need an add-on license for the Microsoft 365 Copilot because it is bringing a lot more capability to the table in terms of acting on your organizational data and your personal Microsoft 365 cloud files. So as long as you have one of those base licenses that we discussed before, you are eligible to purchase the add-on licensing for Microsoft 365 Copilot. The next
This brings just an important point there. This brings the barrier to entry is very, very low, right? You either have Microsoft Copilot or you just need one additional license to open this up, but not just open this up in any fashion, right? In a safe and secure manner, leveraging all of the identity protection that you already have placed in your Microsoft 365 tenant. This is not the same for ChatGPT, where it's just another username and password that's not controlled in any fashion by your organization. So security is built in, like Zach was mentioning, from the get-go throughout. Very important there.
Yeah, definitely. And the next kind of basic item that we recommend is to understand and do an audit or an assessment of your technical readiness. This is going to uncover any issues, risks, and blockers that may be in the way of adopting and rolling out Microsoft 365 Copilot. And this really falls into a few different categories. One is simply the licensing. So it's a check to make sure that you have the appropriate prerequisites and the appropriate licensing to use the solution. The next one is the organizational profile and really the profile of your productivity, that you have your documents in the Microsoft Cloud and OneDrive and Teams and SharePoint online, and that you're using Teams, or at least the majority of your users are using Teams, or the majority of the time they're using Teams to collaborate, because that's really going to unlock a lot of the power of M365 Copilot. And then the third and probably most important area of technical readiness is around those data and security controls, to audit and ensure that you have permissions in place, whether those are through discrete teams, and making sure that team membership is up to date, whether that's document management within SharePoint and ensuring that you have at least basic permissions controls on your SharePoint sites and on your SharePoint document libraries, and really educating people or giving them a chance to go through their OneDrives to make sure they haven't maybe overshared certain types of information. And then as a follow-on to that, also looking at how much old or stale data do you have? Do you have policies in place to handle that data? Because again, people have access to a lot of information. There's data sprawl in every organization. People don't really have that at their fingertips because it's kind of buried, in various repositories. But M365 Copilot is going to be able to go out and potentially consume and access that information on behalf of the user if they have the rights and the permissions to it. And so we want to make sure that all the data is appropriately controlled. We only have access for the people who need access to it. We are not retaining lots of old data when we don't need it. And so a technical readiness assessment is going to give us a really full picture of areas that we might need to focus on, that may not be immediate risks or issues, but it will also identify any blockers that we need to address before we roll out. M365 Copilot. And there's some other things that we also recommend just to make sure that organizations get the most out of M365 Copilot. And I'm going to hand it over to Josh to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and one of the things with a dramatic change in technology usage within an organization is that training and that organizational change management, really focusing on the users and why we're doing this, what we're doing this for, and what they get out of it. So one of our real goals when we implement something like this within an organization is to really focus on that training piece so that those end users can then use the tools that we're providing to not only, be more productive, but unleash their creativity, and the ability to harness that Copilot's power so that you're never starting from scratch on anything. From a productivity level, Copilot, as I've talked about a little bit already, summarizes actions for you and optimizes your time so that you can be more efficient in your day. And then also the third component of that is really up leveling those skills to be better at what you're good at and master what you've yet to learn. And to me, Copilot is going to be that solution where we're able to drive adoption through results. And what that means is people are going to see the fruit of their labor pretty quickly when they get into the tool and realize that they can do things more efficiently and more streamlined. One of the things also that we do in these types of engagements is really discovering and identifying the high impact and high value use cases and scenarios within your organization, HR, accounting, marketing, really streamlining those processes to be able to pick up and build templates, build processes and workflows based upon those day-to-day mundane tasks that are manual in nature and time consuming, and really building those into a solution that makes things more efficient, less error prone, and things of that nature. There's a lot of information now on how we work on a day-to-day basis with Viva Insights and things of that nature that really allow us to kind of pull back the curtain and understand how different groups within our organization work and how we can effectively use a tool like Copilot Studio, to be able to make them more efficient in their day-to-day lives.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Josh. And you did mention something at the end there that's of interest, which is Microsoft 365 Copilot Studio. And with the Microsoft 365 Copilot solution, we've talked about how it integrates into your apps and how you can leverage it. We'll talk a little bit more about some examples of what you can use it for. But again, it's going to be using your data, your documents, and the relational data within the Microsoft Graph and the information in your Microsoft 365 organization to provide those generative responses or to answer your questions. But what about when your organization adopts this? Everybody loves it and is saving time and being more creative. But they're looking around saying, we have a lot of other key organizational data that doesn't live within the Microsoft 365 tenant in our Microsoft Cloud digital estate. We have data from vendor systems. We have an ERP system that is not in the Microsoft ecosystem. We have line of business applications that hold key data for our business process and our sales numbers, our finance numbers. Microsoft 365 Copilot Studio is going to allow us to use a low code and no code approach, which allows non-professional developers to connect this incredibly powerful Microsoft 365 Copilot solution to any data set, regardless of whether it's in the Microsoft ecosystem or sitting in a third-party web application or any other system outside of the Microsoft Cloud environment. And we're going to be able to connect it in such a way that a user who is in Microsoft Word, who has been interacting with M365 Copilot to generate sales proposals or technical design documents, is going to be able, in the flow of their natural language query to M365 Copilot, ask it to also pull in data from those third-party systems. And that's going to be incredibly powerful to really break down the barriers between the different data silos and the different information repositories across every organization.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, one more thing is Microsoft has done a great job on the connection and third-party connection side, in being able to connect other data sources, things like NetSuite, Jira, ADP. There's a lot of third-party solutions outside of the Microsoft stack that have readily available connectors that will then be able to absorb that data and really feed into that day-to-day lifestyle management.
Absolutely. So we'd love to talk a little bit more about, some of those real world examples of how to leverage M365 Copilot. And we look at this in two different ways. One are, what are those common day-to-day tasks that go across different personas and job roles, really within the specific applications. The second way is looking more at the specific use cases for certain job roles and certain personas, to really build those use cases and scenarios that Josh was talking about earlier, to understand what does a day in the life of one of these folks look like, and how can M365 Copilot really take them end to end, not just to complete a discrete task here and a discrete task there. How can they really use it throughout their entire day, or throughout their entire week, or end to end for a specific business process, to provide real value, high impact, and kind of return on the organization's investment. So starting with those more generic examples, if we talk about Excel, right? We can use M365 Copilot to analyze our data, right? And even if it's outside of Excel, we've talked about analyzing and summarizing emails, or meetings, or transcripts. But within Excel, examples include identifying trends in your data set, creating visualizations like charts and graphs, which can be very tedious and time consuming if you don't live in Excel every day. It can create models, and we can simply ask M365 Copilot questions about our data using natural language. So the example I love to use, I live in the Microsoft space, kind of more, on the IT side and technology solutions. When I open up a Microsoft Excel document that is budgetary or financial in nature, it takes me a little while to orient myself, to understand what the data is telling me, what the message is that they're trying to get across. If I could just ask M365 Copilot using natural language and just questions to ground me and help me understand what the data is showing, and what the trends are in the data, it would save an incredible amount of time and make me look smarter. And it's a fantastic use case for M365 Copilot. I will also say one of the other great things it can do in Excel is when you ask it to create a model, when you ask it to run a what if statement, if you change a certain variable, it can show you the steps that it took. So if you want to level up your skills in Excel, you can ask M365 Copilot to do something, and then you can review the step-by-step instructions that it's going to provide you on how to do that. What formulas it used, what cell formats it used, what else it did to get you from A to B. So it really kind of removes the magic from it, which is nice, so that we can level up our skills and really look under the surface, to know what happened, and also to help us validate the information that M365 Copilot is feeding back to us. Chris, Josh, any other common use cases you want to jump in with?
Yeah, for on a more specific type use cases is within that HR space, in understanding how that process works from start to finish, recruiting and hiring to the onboarding and the orientation process, that employee engagement as they're moving through their onboarding journey, and then as the users are onboarded within the organization, looking at that performance management, training and development is really key and crucial. And we know that within that HR group in most organizations, that can become a time-consuming process. And using Copilot to help define and really templatize and add a really high efficiency quotient for those folks in each of these groups is very, very key in an organization, since we are in that mindset now of doing more with less. I think it's really crucial and key to really target areas that are, like I've mentioned before, that are high impact, that can make a real difference within an organization using a tool like Copilot.
Yeah, definitely. And as an example of kind of one of those day in the life of a specific job role or persona, if we look at a sales account executive or a sales lead, so an example may be they start their day, they open up Outlook, and they want M365 Copilot to show them emails from new senders or from a new prospect that they've been receiving communications from. So they can simply say, Copilot, show me emails from new senders or from a specific new prospect. And when Copilot automatically filters those results and displays an email from a new lead or a new prospect, the salesperson can iterate and respond and kind of have that conversation with M365 Copilot to say, that's great. Invite the prospect to a meeting to learn about our core offerings or to learn about a specific product that they may enter in, and use persuasive language. And so now what's going to happen is M365 Copilot's going to generate a meeting invitation. It's going to fill out the body using a persuasive tone and pull information about that specific product or about that specific offering that the salesperson has access to, whether that's in PowerPoint decks or Word documents. And it's going to prepare that meeting invitation for the salesperson to send out. So they send that out and the prospect accepts the meeting. And now the salesperson needs to prepare for the pitch, prepare for that meeting. So maybe they had some training over the last couple of weeks, but they missed one of the trainings or they were multitasking during one of those meetings. Now they're going to open up Teams, and they're going to ask Copilot to recap the customer pitch tips from the previous meetings in the past weeks. So Copilot's going to return back probably in a nice bullet list all the tips and remind that salesperson what they need to do and what the organization's been training them around. And now they want to create that killer deck for the pitch meeting with the prospect. So they open up PowerPoint and they tell it to update their template, or they point it at an existing pitch deck template that they've used in the past, and add pricing from an Excel spreadsheet that they've been working on, and to make sure that they include the logo of the prospect. And so Copilot's going to go out, it's going to reference those existing decks, it's going to build a new deck following that same general format, but it's going to pull in the information from the Excel pricing spreadsheet, as well as go out and find a logo for their prospect and slap it all in there. And then they have the meeting, and they record the meeting on Teams. They can ask Copilot to summarize the transcript of the meeting. They can also ask it to generate meeting notes and action items. And then the salesperson can just easily turn around, open up Outlook and say, draft a thank you note, send it to the prospect, include the meeting notes and include the next steps and the action items. And I mean, in those, that's three basic kind of pillars, but there were multiple prompts there. The time savings is huge. Of course, the salesperson is going to review all the Copilot responses, make sure they're accurate, make sure they make sense. But to be able to leverage it to go back, recap information from previous meetings, pull information from related documents, it's truly going to be a game changer. And there's examples like that for marketing, for HR. Josh touched on recruiting. You can just imagine the power of drafting new job descriptions, scheduling meetings, recapping interview notes, providing those to hiring managers, helping to draft offer letters. A lot of these repetitive tasks where we just need to kind of, mail merge in some changes, we can now do in a much more modern and efficient and elegant way.
And I think that's a great another great point there, right? Is removing the mundane tasks that yes, people can do, but it is just tying up their time and it's not moving the business forward. So they can focus, let Copilot, do the mundane tasks, save them the time, remove the writer's block, so they can free up their time to move the business forward in a way that they did not have before because they were doing those mundane tasks.
Yeah, banish your busy work. It is a good way to think about it. And according to Microsoft, 3 in 4 people would be comfortable using an AI tool for those administrative mundane tasks. So just to open that up, think of how much more free they will be if half of their job is being done more efficiently. That frees them up for the real meat of the remaining pieces of their job.
Absolutely. So hopefully you've learned a lot about Microsoft 365 Copilot, Microsoft Copilot in general, and we encourage all organizations to really step back, reflect on how you could achieve more with M365 Copilot and the whole suite of Microsoft Copilot solutions. Start to think about those high impact and valuable use cases and scenarios within your organization specifically, whether that's kind of broadly across the organization or in those specific teams and across those specific personas. And know that for any AI technology that you're looking at deploying, there are key prerequisites and things you need to know across your technical readiness, identifying those high impact and valuable use cases, and building a plan so that you can ensure a smooth deployment. You can ensure that you can drive adoption throughout the organization, and at the end of the day, you can increase productivity, you can unleash people's creativity, and you can help them build skills in their daily jobs. So thank you so much.